Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into a book that honestly has really shifted how a lot of people approach self-improvement, maybe even success itself. It's Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones, by James Clear.
Yeah, it's huge. And it's not just, your typical self-help advice. It really digs into the science of how we actually change our behavior. It's very practical, very actionable.
Definitely self-improvement genre, but like you said, with this rigorous edge to it. Psychology, biology, it's all in there. And our mission today really is to pull out the absolute core ideas for you. We want to focus on that surprising impact of seemingly tiny habits.
The small stuff.
Exactly. And then break down the actual step-by-step system the book gives us for, building the good ones and ditching the bad ones, getting those key nuggets.
And I think what makes it really resonate is the author's own story. James Clear shares this incredibly powerful personal experience right at the start, and it just perfectly sets up why these small habits matter so much.
It really does. It grounds everything. He talks about this horrific injury he had in high school, baseball.
Oh, it was brutal. Yeah, life-altering stuff. He got hit square in the face with a baseball bat. And the way he describes it is, well, it's intense. Couldn't breathe properly, seizures, massive facial fractures, broken nose, eye socket. His left eye was actually bulging out.
Which is awful. And being airlifted, unconscious. The recovery sounds incredibly long and difficult.
It was double vision for weeks, couldn't see right for months. Took him 8 months just to be able to drive again. And the physical therapy, he had to relearn basic things like walking straight. His baseball dreams, at least for high school, were just gone.
That's the kind of thing that could just completely derail a young person.
Right.
But he talks about finding a, quote, new beginning in college. Denison University.
He did. And that's really where this whole journey with habits starts for him. He actually made the baseball team there against the odds, really. Junior year, bottom of the list. But instead of, obsessing about being a star player way down the line.
He focused small.
Exactly. Small, controllable things to just get his life feeling organized again.
Like what sort of things? What were these tiny habits?
Well, really basic stuff, like keeping his room clean, which, in a college dorm.
Not easy.
Right. And getting good sleep, going to bed early when everyone else was staying up, keeping his grades up. None of it was glamorous.
No, sounds pretty mundane, actually.
Totally mundane. But by sticking with those simple, consistent actions, he slowly built this foundation. His later success wasn't some sudden breakthrough. It grew out of those little habits piling up. He really learned, as he says, the surprising power of small habits for the first time right there.
And that story just tees up the book's main argument perfectly, doesn't it? This almost counterintuitive power of tiny changes.
We really do tend to overestimate the big moments, don't we? The huge decision, the dramatic turnaround, the overnight success story. We love that narrative.
We do. We think we need these massive, heroic efforts to get real results.
But Clear argues we massively underestimate the value of just getting a little bit better consistently day after day. And the core idea behind it is, well, it's simple math, but profound. The compounding effect of 1% improvements.
Okay, yeah, walk us through that math, because it is pretty eye-opening.
It really is. So think about it. If you improve just 1% each day for a whole year.
You'd think, okay, 365% better? No.
Not even close. You end up, wait for it, 37 times better.
37 times from one tiny percent a day. That feels almost impossible.
It's the magic of compounding, right? It's not linear. That little gain repeated over and over just multiplies exponentially. And the flip side is just as dramatic and kind of scary. Get 1% worse each day.
And you basically decline almost to zero over a year.
Wow. It really drives home that those tiny choices, the ones that feel insignificant in the moment, skipping a workout, eating junk food, putting off that small task, they actually set your trajectory over the long run.
So success isn't about these huge leaps. It's the sum of your daily habits.
Precisely. It doesn't matter how successful you are today. If your daily habit is, say, spending more than you earn, your trajectory is downward. But if you start with nothing, but make it a habit to save even a tiny bit consistently, you're building towards something better.
It forces you to look at the direction you're heading, not just where you are right now.
And it applies everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Productivity compounds. Fix one small workflow issue, save a few minutes, that time adds up. Knowledge compounds, read a page, then another, understanding grows. Relationships compound, small kindnesses, build strong bonds.
And the negative stuff compounds too, unfortunately.
Right.
Unmanaged stress, negative self-talk, those little death by a thousand cuts financial habits.
Yeah.
They build up.
Yeah. The book gives this fantastic real-world example that everyone talks about now. the transformation of British cycling.
Oh, yeah, that story's incredible. Before, 2007, British cyclists had this century-long record of, well, mediocrity, basically. Very few Olympic medals, no Tour de France wins. Then Dave Brailsford came in.
Right, as performance director. And his philosophy was deceptively simple: the aggregation of marginal gains. He believed if they could improve everything involved in cycling by just 1%, those tiny gains would add up to something huge.
And he meant everything. Not just the obvious stuff like training or the bikes themselves.
Oh, they went deep, analyzing every conceivable factor. Tiny tweaks to the bike seats for better comfort and power, using alcohol on the tires for better grip, making riders wear electrically heated shorts to keep muscles at optimal temperature.
They tested different massage gels to find the one that aided muscle recovery the fastest.
And this is where it gets almost absurdly detailed. They figured out the optimal pillow and mattress combination for each rider's sleep quality, and then they transported those specific pillows and mattresses with the team to every hotel.
Bringing your own pillow to ensure peak performance? It sounds crazy. How could that possibly make a difference in winning a gold medal?
And that's the whole point of marginal gains, right? Individually, each change is almost negligible, maybe even seems silly, but add them all up. Compound them.
The results were insane.
Astonishing. In the 10 years after they started this, British cycling won 178 world championships, 66 Olympic gold medals, 5 Tour de France titles. Just unprecedented dominance.
It's such powerful proof of the concept. Consistent, tiny improvements leading to massive results over time.
Absolutely. But this brings up a really common frustration, doesn't it? When we try to make small changes. Why does it so often feel like nothing's happening? You start a new habit, you do it for a week, maybe 2, and crickets. No visible progress.
Right. You expect this nice, steady upward climb.
Yeah.
But the book talks about the plateau of latent potential.
Exactly. It's that period where you're putting in the effort, making those 1% improvements, but the results haven't broken through yet. You're stuck in what he calls the valley of disappointment, and that's where so many people just give up.
It feels like all that effort is just evaporating because you can't see the change yet.
But the work isn't wasted. It's like the ice cube analogy in the book. It's brilliant. Imagine an ice cube in a cold room. You slowly raise the temperature, 25 degrees Fahrenheit, 26, 27, all the way to 31 degrees. What happens?
Nothing. Still a solid block of ice.
Exactly. All that energy you put in, raising the temperature bit by bit, seems to have done nothing. But it wasn't wasted. It was building up inside the ice, changing its state internally. Then you raise it just 1 more degree to 32.
And boom, it melts, it transforms. All the visible change happens right at that threshold.
And our habits are often just like that. You put in the daily reps, the workout, the writing session, the saving, the studying, and for a long time it feels like you're just going from 25 to 31 degrees. Nothing seems to change. But the potential is accumulating.
So you have to push through that plateau, keep putting in the work until you hit that tipping point, that melting point where the results finally become visible.
Yes. What looks like overnight success from the outside is almost always the result of months or years of consistent, unseen effort during that plateau phase. Trusting the process is key, even when it's frustrating.
That idea really helps with patience, and it leads right into another massive idea from the book: shifting focus from goals to systems.
This is a big one, a real paradigm shift for most of us, I think. We're taught to be goal-oriented, aren't we? Set specific, measurable targets, lose X pounds, make Y dollars, run Z marathon.
Yeah, that's the standard advice, SMART goals and all that.
And goals aren't useless. Clear admits they're good for setting a direction, for knowing where you want to go. But his argument, and it's a strong one, is that your actual results have surprisingly little to do with the goals themselves, and almost everything to do with the systems you follow.
That quote is so powerful. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
It hits home, doesn't it? Because it points out that just focusing on the finish line can be misleading. The problems start when we're so fixated on the outcome that we neglect designing the process that will actually get us there reliably.
The book lays out a few problems with being purely goal-focused. First, winners and losers often share the exact same goal.
Right. Every Olympian wants gold. Every startup wants to be a unicorn. The goal doesn't separate them. It's the system, the daily training, the business operations, the consistent habits that makes the crucial difference.
Second, achieving a goal is just temporary. You hit your target weight, great. But if your underlying eating and exercise system hasn't changed, the weight often comes back.
He says we think we need to change the results, but the results are just symptoms. The system is the root cause. If you fix the inputs, build a system of healthy habits, the outputs, like weight loss, tend to take care of themselves.
And third, this goal-only mindset can kind of mess with your happiness, right? You delay feeling good until you hit the target. I'll be happy when I get the promotion.
And then what happens when you do get it? Either you immediately set the next bigger goal, staying on that treadmill, or the motivation evaporates because the chase is over. You might even slide back into old habits, that classic yo-yo effect.
So the goal becomes this destination that, once reached, leaves you a bit lost.
Exactly. But a systems-first approach offers something different. If you learn to love the process, the daily act of showing up and running your system, you can find satisfaction right now. You're not waiting for some future achievement to give you permission to feel good. The progress itself becomes rewarding.
And a good system can often lead to success beyond what you even imagined when you set the initial goal. It's about continuous improvement.
So wrapping up this first big section, it's about grasping the incredible power of those tiny compounding improvements and understanding that focusing on building effective systems is way more important than just staring at the finish line.
Okay, that foundation is clear. So how do we actually do it? How do we make these changes? The book talks about 3 layers of behavior change.
Right. Think of them like an onion. Outcomes are the outside layer, the results you get, like losing weight or publishing a book.
Okay.
Process is the middle layer. That's your habits, your systems, the actions you take.
Got it.
And identity is the core, the deepest layer. This is about your beliefs about yourself, your self-image, who you fundamentally believe you are.
And the book argues that for change to really stick long-term, you have to operate at that deepest level, the identity level.
Precisely. You can try changing your outcomes or your processes and maybe see some short-term shifts.
Right.
But if a behavior clashes with your underlying identity, it's incredibly hard to sustain. Like, if you want to be wealthy, but deep down you see yourself as someone who spends, not saves, that identity will constantly pull you back.
So my internal self-image can actually sabotage my well-intentioned habits and systems?
Absolutely. You can have the best plan, the clearest goal, but if it feels fundamentally inauthentic to who you believe you are, you're fighting an uphill battle. Your beliefs will likely win out eventually. Lasting change means changing the beliefs that drove the old behavior in the first place.
Okay, that makes sense, but changing my identity, that sounds like a huge, maybe even impossible task. How do you even begin?
It sounds big, but the book offers a surprisingly straightforward 2-step process. Step 1. Decide the type of person you want to be. Don't start with the outcome, start with the who. Who is a kind of person that achieves that outcome?
So instead of I want to lose weight, it's more like I want to be a healthy person or I want to be an athlete.
Exactly. Define the identity first. Then, step 2. Prove it to yourself with small wins.
Prove it. How?
Through your habits. This is the key insight. Your identity isn't fixed. It actually emerges from your actions. You learn who you are by what you do. Every single action you take is like casting a vote for the type of person you are or the type of person you want to become.
Ah, okay. So the habits aren't just things I do. They're like evidence I'm collecting about who I am.
Yes, that's it exactly. Habits are how you embody an identity. When you make your bed, you're embodying the identity of an organized person. When you write one paragraph, you're embodying the identity of a writer. When you exercise, even for 5 minutes, you embody the identity of an athlete.
Every small habit is a vote for that identity.
And the great news is you don't need a unanimous vote. You don't have to be perfect. Like any election, you just need a majority of votes over time. A few slip-ups, a few bad votes don't derail everything if overall your actions are building evidence for that desired identity.
That really lowers the bar for perfectionism, doesn't it?
It does. And this, according to the book, is the real reason habits matter so much. It's not just about the results they get you in the short term. It's because consistently performing them fundamentally changes your beliefs about yourself. You gather proof, vote by vote, that you are that kind of person. And, quoting Clear, you start to believe you can actually accomplish these things.
There's that story about Brian Clark, the entrepreneur who quit biting his nails. He used willpower at first, but then he did something extra.
He got a manicure. It wasn't strictly necessary to stop the biting, but it reinforced the identity. It was an action consistent with being someone who takes care of their nails, someone who doesn't bite them. It solidified the shift.
So it's about letting your actions become undeniable proof of who you're becoming. That feels way more powerful than just right-knuckling towards a goal.
It really is. So, for you listening, Think about who you want to become, and then ask, what's one tiny habit, one small vote you could cast for that identity today?
That shifts from what do I want
Yeah.
to who do I want to be is profound.
And to make this all practical, to give us the how-to, the book lays out this incredibly useful framework, the 4 laws of behavior change.
This is the real engine of the book, the blueprint. It breaks down any habit into 4 steps: cue, craving, response, and reward.
Right. And that sequence, that loop, is the backbone of how our brains automate behavior. Understanding it lets us deliberately design good habits and dismantle bad ones.
And the reason our brain loves this loop is efficiency, right? Habits are mental shortcuts learned through experience, like Thorndike's cats getting faster at escaping the puzzle box.
Exactly. The brain wants to automate responses to recurring problems to save energy and free up conscious attention for new things. Once the basics are handled by habit, you can focus on more complex stuff.
Okay, let's walk through the 4 laws then, mapping them onto that loop. First law, connected to the cue.
The first law is make it obvious. The cue is the trigger. It's the bit of information, a sight, a sound, a time of day, an emotion that tells your brain, hey, do this behavior because a reward might follow.
And rewards historically were basic survival things: food, water, safety, sex. Now they're often more abstract.
Yeah, things like money, approval, status, love, satisfaction. Our brains are constantly scanning our surroundings for these cues, these hints of potential reward.
The tricky part is that these cues often work below conscious awareness. The book has those great examples. The paramedic instantly spotting heart attack signs they can't even articulate.
Or the military analyst seeing a missile threat on radar, the museum curator spotting a fake, the radiologist predicting a stroke, even the hairdresser noticing subtle hair changes suggesting pregnancy. It's all pattern recognition built from repeated exposure to cues.
And because it's often unconscious, we can find ourselves falling into old habits without even knowing what triggered them.
Totally. Think about the examples like the retail clerk who automatically cuts up a credit card after years of doing it with gift cards, or the former teacher asking colleagues if they washed their hands after using the restroom. Old loops firing automatically. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
So job number 1 for changing any habit is just becoming aware of the cues that are currently triggering you.
Yes. And the book offers a simple tool, the habit scorecard. Just list your daily habits from waking up onwards, then mark each one. Is it positive, plus, negative, or neutral for your long-term goals?
Forces you to actually see what you're doing day to day.
And it helps you realize even bad habits serve some purpose in the moment, maybe reducing stress or boredom. The scorecard just clarifies if the long-term payoff is worth it.
Okay, so once you're aware, how do you actively make the cues for good habits more obvious?
Strategy 1, implementation intentions. This turns a vague goal like, I want to meditate, into a concrete plan.
The formula: I will behavior at time and location. So I will meditate for 5 minutes at 7 a.m. in my living room.
Exactly. It's incredibly effective. Studies show it massively boosts follow-through for things like flu shots, voting, getting work done. It removes the ambiguity, creates a clear trigger.
Then there's habit stacking.
Yeah, this piggybacks on implementation intentions, but you link the new habit to a habit you already do automatically. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit.
Like, after I pour my morning coffee, I will take my vitamin. Or after I take off my work shoes, I will change into my workout clothes.
It uses the completion of the old habit as the cue for the new one, builds a bridge. The book mentions the Diderot effect, how buying one nice thing can trigger a cascade of wanting to upgrade everything else. Habits can cascade similarly.
Probably the most powerful tactic for making cues obvious is designing your environment.
Oh, absolutely. Our vision is dominant, huge brain resources dedicated to it. What we see shapes what we do. You have to be the architect, not the victim of your surroundings.
The examples are great. The Dutch reducing energy use when the meter was visible. That fly sticker in the urinals at Schiphol Airport, improving aim and cutting cleaning costs.
It works. Make the cues for good habits unmissable. Put your vitamins next to the coffee maker. Leave your guitar on a stand in the living room, not in the case in the closet. Keep a bowl of fruit on the counter, fill water bottles, and place them where you'll see them.
And the flip side, the inversion of the first law for bad habits.
Yeah.
Make it invisible.
Reduce exposure. If you don't see the cue, the habit often doesn't even start. Hide the cookies. Put the TV remote in a drawer. Log out of social media apps. Maybe even delete them from your phone's home screen.
The book makes a really interesting point about self-control here. People we think of as having high self-control,
Mm,
maybe they're not constantly battling temptation.
exactly. They often just structure their lives and environments to avoid temptation in the first place. They spend less time in situations that require willpower. It's easier to avoid the cue than to resist the craving once it's triggered. A disciplined environment supports your better self.
So, first law, make it obvious for good habits, make it invisible for bad ones. Got it.
Right. That leads us to the second law, linked to the craving, make it attractive.
The craving is the why, right? The
Mhm.
motivation. It's not wanting the habit itself, but wanting the change in feeling or state that the habit brings.
Precisely. You don't crave the cigarette itself. You crave the feeling of relief from withdrawal or stress. You don't crave the act of brushing. You crave the feeling of a clean mouth. You don't crave opening the app. You crave the hit of novelty or connection or distraction.
And these specific cravings usually tap into deeper, fundamental human motives: survival, energy conservation, connection, status, approval. Emotions are like signals telling us our current state needs changing, which generates the craving.
Yeah, how we feel drives what we do, and vice versa. Craving is the feeling that initiates action. Reward is the feeling that reinforces it.
So how can we make a potentially difficult or boring habit more attractive?
A key strategy is associating it with positive feelings. You can consciously reframe your mindset. The book suggests changing "I have to" into "I get to."
I have to wake up early for a run becomes I get to wake up early for a run. I have to make sales calls becomes I get to make sales calls.
It shifts the feeling from obligation to opportunity. Like the meditation example. Seeing a distraction not as a failure, but as a welcome chance to practice returning to the breath. Or athletes reframing pre-competition nerves as excitement rather than anxiety.
The author's own pre-game ritual for baseball did that, right? Associated a specific routine with feeling focused and competitive.
Exactly. And dopamine is critical here. Habits are essentially dopamine-driven feedback loops. The fascinating thing is, dopamine spikes not just when we get the reward, but often even more strongly in anticipation of it.
Like those rat experiments or slot machines, the near misses, the flashing lights, it's all about building anticipation.
Yes, and highly addictive behaviors, drugs, junk food, gambling, social media, they often hijack the system with unnaturally high dopamine spikes tied to anticipation. Dopamine is more about wanting than liking. It drives the pursuit.
The book mentions temptation bundling as a practical way to harness this.
Right, you bundle something you want to do with something you need to do. Like you only allow yourself to watch your favorite Netflix show while you're on the treadmill. You leverage the anticipated pleasure of the show to make the exercise more attractive.
That's clever. Another really powerful strategy is tapping into our social nature. Joining a culture where the habit you want is the norm.
Hugely powerful. We have this fundamental human need to belong, to fit in. We naturally imitate the habits of those around us.
Especially, the book says, the close, family, friends, the many, the tribe, social norms, and the powerful, those with status.
And often the desire to conform to the group outweighs our own individual judgment or even our best interests. Think of the Ash conformity experiments, people denying what they clearly saw just to fit in. The tribe's normal behavior is incredibly influential.
The examples are potent. The Polgar sisters becoming chess masters because they grew up in a family completely immersed in chess. Mike Massimino ending up in an MIT class where becoming an astronaut was seen as achievable, and several of them did.
Or finding an online community like Nerd Fitness, where people share your interests and your fitness goals. Change feels much more achievable, even attractive, when it's something people like me do.
So make the desired habit the normal, attractive thing within your group, and the inversion for bad habits. Make it unattractive.
Exactly. Reframe its meaning. Alan Carr's method for quitting smoking is a prime example, systematically dismantling the perceived benefits and highlighting the downsides until smoking seems illogical and undesirable. Remove the positive associations.
Okay, that's the second law. Now the third law, which is about the response itself. Make it easy.
This taps into another fundamental aspect of human nature, the law of least effort. We are wired to conserve energy. We naturally gravitate towards the easiest option, the path of least resistance, like water flowing downhill.
So the less friction there is, the more likely we are to do something.
Precisely. And this law emphasizes repetition as the key to habit formation, even more than duration. Remember Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together wire together. Each repetition strengthens the neural pathway for that habit. like the London taxi drivers growing their hippocampus through constant spatial navigation practice.
That photography class example illustrates it perfectly. The group graded on quantity ended up producing better photos than the quality group, simply because they practiced relentlessly through repetition.
Walk slowly, but never backward. It's about consistent reps, even small ones, because that's what physically wires the habit into your brain.
So practically, we need to reduce the friction for good habits. Make them so easy that motivation almost doesn't matter.
It's not about being lazy, but about engineering your environment and actions so the right choice is the easy choice in the moment. Think of lean manufacturing in Japan, constantly redesigning workflows to remove wasted steps and make tasks simpler, more efficient.
A key strategy for this is priming the environment.
Setting things up in advance to make the future actions smoother. Like Oswald Knuckles' habit of resetting the room, putting things away immediately, or the author's wife pre-sorting greeting cards.
Or laying out your gym clothes the night before. Putting the healthy ingredients front and center in the fridge. Pre-chopping veggies. Small setup actions that drastically lower the barrier later.
And for bad habits, you do the opposite. Increase friction, even a little bit can deter you. Put the junk food on a high shelf. Log out of apps automatically. Delete payment info from shopping sites. Make the unwanted action require more effort.
Make the desired path the easiest one to follow.
And the 2-minute rule is a fantastic tool for this.
The idea that when you start a new habit, make the very first step take less than 2 minutes.
Right. The goal isn't necessarily to make the entire habit take 2 minutes, but to make starting incredibly easy. Do yoga becomes roll out my yoga mat, read before bed becomes read 1 page, run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes.
They're gateway habits. They overcome the initial inertia. Once you've started, it's much easier to keep going. Standardize the start before you optimize the whole thing.
And if you want to make good habits almost guaranteed or bad habits nearly impossible, you can use commitment devices.
These are choices you make now to lock in future behavior, usually by adding significant friction or consequences to the undesired action. Like Victor Hugo having his servant hide his clothes so he had to write.
Or James Ritty's incorruptible cashier, the first cash register designed to make it harder for employees to steal. Setting up automatic savings transfers is a modern commitment device. The money moves before you can choose to spend it.
Takes willpower out of the equation at the critical moment.
Technology is a double-edged sword here, isn't it? It can automate good habits beautifully, auto bill pay, investment apps, but it can also make bad habits frictionless, endless scrolling, instant purchases, autoplay. When effort drops to zero, impulse often wins.
That author's story about having his assistant change his social media passwords weekly is telling. Making it difficult revealed the issue wasn't lack of motivation for real work, but lack of friction for distraction.
So the strategy is automate the good, eliminate or make difficult the bad.
Which brings us to the inversion. Make it difficult for bad habits. Add friction, use commitment devices, automate prevention where possible.
Which leads us to the fourth and final law connected to the reward. Make it satisfying.
The reward closes the loop. It satisfies the craving that started it all, and crucially, it teaches the brain. That was good, let's do that again. It delivers pleasure and provides feedback.
The fundamental challenge here, though, is the mismatch between our evolutionary wiring and modern life. Our brains evolved for an immediate return environment. Our ancestors got instant feedback: find berries, eat berries, feel good, find shelter, feel safe.
But we live in a delayed return environment. The rewards for most good habits, health, wealth, skill mastery, are often weeks, months, or years away. The cost, the effort, the discomfort are right now.
And for bad habits, it's flipped. The rewards, the sugar rush, the nicotine hit, the temporary stress relief are immediate. The costs, the health consequences, the debt, the lost time or delayed, often way down the road.
So our present self naturally prioritizes that immediate gratification over our future self's well-being.
Exactly. So the trick, the vital part of the fourth law, is to find a way to inject some form of immediate satisfaction into your good habits, especially when you're starting out. You need to feel successful, even in a tiny way, right after you perform the habit.
That immediate positive feeling acts as the reinforcement signal to the brain.
Yes. Like that hand-washing study in Pakistan, just providing better, nicer soap made the act of hand-washing immediately more pleasant. The feeling, the scent. That small, immediate satisfaction helped cement the habit long-term, leading to better health outcomes.
And a really simple, powerful way to create immediate satisfaction is habit tracking.
Just the simple act of putting an X on a calendar, moving a paperclip, checking a box in an app, it provides instant visual evidence of progress.
It does two things right. First, it keeps you honest. We're often terrible at estimating our own behavior. Food logging studies consistently show people who track lose more weight.
And second, tracking itself is inherently satisfying. Seeing that chain of X's grow, watching the progress bar fill up, that provides a little dopamine hit. It makes the act of tracking reinforce the habit. You don't want to break the chain.
But there's a caution here, isn't there? The book warns about Goodhart's law.
Right. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. We can become so obsessed with hitting the metric, the step count, the word count, the hours logged, that we lose sight of the actual goal. Genuine health, quality writing, meaningful work. We optimize for the number, not the purpose.
Measurement is a tool for feedback, not the ultimate goal itself. Don't sacrifice what's important just because it's hard to quantify.
Now, for breaking bad habits, the inversion, make it unsatisfying.
Make the immediate consequence painful or unpleasant. Pain is a quick teacher.
Think about late fees, parking tickets, social shaming. The more immediate, tangible, and certain the consequence, the more effective it is at deterring the behavior. Vague future threats, like lung cancer in 30 years, often aren't enough to counteract the immediate pleasure of smoking.
A habit contract is a structured way to do this. Like Brian Harris making that deal with his wife and trainer-specific, immediate punishments if he failed to log his food or meet his weight goals.
Even just having an accountability partner works on this principle. Knowing someone else is watching, someone you respect and don't want to let down, adds an immediate social cost to skipping out or giving in. We hate looking bad in front of others.
Okay, so that's the core framework. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. And there are inversions.
Yeah.
But the book goes a bit further into mastering habits.
Yeah, a couple of key points. One is playing to your strengths. Our genes give us predispositions, right? Some things just come more naturally to us. Success isn't just about brute force. It's often about choosing the right game to play.
Finding habits in fields where your natural inclinations give you an edge.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what feels like fun to me but work to others? What comes easier? Where do I get lost in the flow? As Clear puts it, work hard on the things that come easy. Align your habits with your personality and skills.
Then there's maintaining motivation long term. Mastery needs practice, but practice can get, well, boring.
Boredom is maybe the biggest killer of long-term habits. The book talks about the Goldilocks rule. We thrive when we're working on challenges of just manageable difficulty.
Not too easy, not too hard, just right.
Right. Tasks slightly beyond our current skill level, maybe 4% harder, keep us engaged and learning, often leading to that state of flow. But once a habit is truly automatic, the challenge fades. Variable rewards, like slot machines use, can help maintain interest by making the payoff unpredictable.
So the very success of creating a habit, making it automatic, can also lead to the challenge of boredom.
It's a paradox of mastery, and that's why the final piece is so important. Reflection and review.
You can't just set your systems and forget them. You need to check in. Are these habits still serving me? Is the system still the most effective? Am I still aligned with my identity?
The author does his annual review and integrity reports. It's about ensuring you're not just mindlessly repeating actions, but are consciously steering towards your goals and values, making course corrections as needed.
So, pulling it all together, it's not about one single breakthrough. It's about thousands of those atomic habits, those 1% improvements stacking up over time.
At first, they feel small, maybe invisible, stuck on that plateau. But you keep adding layers, keep casting those votes.
Until eventually you hit a tipping point. The weight of the evidence, the strength of the system starts working for you. Good habits feel more natural than the old ones.
So just to quickly recap that core loop and the laws. Cue triggers a craving, which motivates a response, which delivers a reward, reinforcing the loop.
And the laws help us engineer it. Make the
Yeah.
cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying.
With the inversions invisible, unattractive, difficult, unsatisfying to break bad habits.
It really provides a powerful lens for understanding why we do what we do, and a practical toolkit for intentionally shaping our behavior and ultimately who we become.
And it really underscores how much our feelings, the anticipation of the craving, the satisfaction of the reward, drive the whole process. Desire starts it, pleasure sustains it.
We've really only skimmed the highlights today. There's so much more nuance, research, and practical advice packed into Atomic Habit.
Oh, absolutely. If this sparked your interest, diving into the full book is definitely recommended.
So to leave you with something to chew on, thinking specifically about that first law, make it obvious, and the third law, make it easy. Consider the power of those visible cues and reducing friction. What's one tiny, almost laughably small adjustment you could make to your physical environment today that would nudge you, even slightly, towards a habit you want to build? Could you put your running shoes right by the door? Place that water bottle directly in your line of sight on your desk? Set out the book you want to read on your pillow right now.
Just one tiny thing to make the first step easier. What could it be for you?
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.